Hello, I'm your host Kate Order, and I'm here with my guests Angell and Mark. Recently, a Dungeons & Dragons live streaming group started a Kickstarter to raise $750,000 for an animated special. Astoundingly, they raised over $9 million. Their success makes us ask the question, are niche, nerdy hobbies becoming more socially acceptable? This is SPOTcast. Do you guys have any hobbies that would be considered nerdy, and are you guys vocal about it?
Yeah, I have one. I follow the competitive scene for an 18-year-old fighting game called Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. I don't really talk about it because, for one, for most of my life, I didn't want to be considered a nerd, since to me it's always had a negative stigma and didn't want to be associated with that. So I just kept it quiet.
Yeah, so do I. It doesn't have anything to do with gaming, but for the longest time, I think it was about 5 years, I was in an orchestra, and I was first chair and first stand in each instrument I played, it just means that you're the best person in your section to play that instrument. I'm not really vocal about it either, but not because of how other people see me. I just never found someone that cares about it enough to talk to me about it. It wouldn't change.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat. I play Dungeons & Dragons, kind of like the people who started the Kickstarter, and I'm also really into fiction podcasting, which is like, that's pretty niche. Those are two pretty niche things. You guys talked about how you weren't really vocal about it. Do you think that comes from the feeling of needing to hide it, and where do you think that comes from?
I don't really feel like I need to hide it. Like I said, I just haven't found someone that is interested in talking about the same things that I am interested in. Also, the people that cared about classical music are dead now, so it's just not popular anymore.
I used to feel I needed to hide it because it's kind of niche and weird to be following a game that's so old and to be following esports, which a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned that, like, for people, it's weird because you feel like people don't understand it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that ignorance impacts how, like, the population at large views, in this case, Melee?
Definitely. If you take esports or just Melee, for example, whenever you see a news group or any sort of group, especially if it's intended for an older audience, they ridicule it, they call it ridiculous. They think it's ridiculous that you could be professionally playing a video game.
Yeah, that can be really frustrating, right? Because, like, in my own experience, I mean, for Dungeons & Dragons, there was a period in the 80s that is literally called the Satanic Panic because people thought that D&D meant you were worshiping the devil instead of just, like, sitting around and playing pretend with your friends and, like, rolling some dice. How about you, Angell? Did that,
This was interesting for me because this question doesn't really apply to me, I guess, in my situation. People who enjoy playing music and being part of a band and stuff like that don't really care about what other people think, especially people that they know don't understand it or aren't interested in it. I just seen people that it's not really worth it to consider other people's opinions, especially if they're negative, and I'm the same way.
Kind of on a more personal note, have you ever had, like, an experience where someone's judged you for, being into what you're into?
I have, definitely. Like, there's just people that don't really understand how you can just sit in a room for hours with other people and play music. I really enjoyed it, honestly, just taking the leadership role and being good at something like that, especially a lot of people can't do it, so the fact that I can do it just kind of makes me feel good about it.
Yeah, and, like, for me, I mean, it's no secret for me that, like, I'm a nerd. That's anyone who knows, spends 10 minutes with me knows that that's the case. But even with something like D&D, like, I feel like D&D is kind of one of those, like, nerd thresholds that you pass, right? Because, like, there's a difference between being, like, really into, like, a TV show or sci-fi or whatever, and then it's like, oh, well, actually, I sit in a room with people and pretend to be other people and, like, fight with swords and stuff. But so, like, that has kind of like prevented me from really, like, talking about it with people. And this kind of, like, leads into our next question, like, when you do share this, like, thing that you're interested in, how have those interactions gone? Like, have you found that, like, people are mostly positive about it, or
Well, I just kind of say, hey, have you ever watched Melee? And see if they recognize the name. If they don't, don't press it.
I agree with Mark. People that I talk to about band or playing an instrument, if they don't, then I don't press it. If they do, depends what instrument they play because it's not really the same. So I guess it's kind of being nerdy in a different way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like, yeah, in my case too, like if I say, hey, Dungeons and Dragons, huh? And they're like, okay. Then I'm like, oh, I'll never talk to you about that again, okay. But like I've had some of like my best friends right now, we kind of like tentatively approached the subject and then found out that we both played, and like now we're really good friends. But like we're also seeing, like you talked about like esports gamers, and obviously there are like fantastic musicians all over the world. We're seeing some people find some real success with some of these hobbies, right? Does that change the way that you kind of think about them, or the way that you feel like people are considering them?
To me, it's definitely legitimized the idea of people professionally playing, because with media, it's televised to the point where everyone knows that you can be in esports, you can make a living off just playing games. So to me, I think I've seen people respect it more, even old people who were otherwise ignorant.
My situation is completely opposite. It's usually older people that appreciate classical music or playing instruments as a band or as an orchestra. Yeah, definitely kind of switched. It's the younger kids that usually that's weird. Or yeah.
That's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank my guests, Mark and Angel. From Spot 127, I'm Kate Ourada, and this is SPOTcast.